This is a story from 2 years ago. This is a story that I am not allowed to write about, so I can't write about specific places. Most of the specifics have been omitted or brought out, so please read only if you are okay with that. It was the summer vacation of my senior year of high school. Me and my 5 friends were tired from studying for the entrance examinations, and it was the last summer vacation in high school, so we made a plan to go on a trip somewhere. However, since it was already summer vacation, we had a hard time finding a place to stay because all the tourist spots had waiting lists. Finally, we found a pension in a highland area in the Kyoto region. We decided to stay at the pension in the Kyoto region, and we thought that if there were no complaints, even if we made a lot of noise, we could stay anywhere we wanted to. On the day of the trip, we left early in the morning and arrived there before noon, but there was a slight problem. Apparently, there was a miscommunication between the travel agency and the pension's management association. We had made a reservation for 3 days and 2 nights starting today, but the pension told us that our stay was scheduled for 3 days from today and that none of the rooms were available at the moment. We complained that this was not possible after having come so far, and were first introduced to a hotel in a town at the foot of the mountain. But we were not here just for sightseeing, and we wanted a place where we would not receive any complaints even if we made noise at night. Then, the pension staff started calling somewhere on his cell phone, saying, "Well, I'd like you to wait a moment." I didn't understand the content of the phone call, but somehow it seemed that they were having quite a dispute. He stayed on the phone for about 15 minutes, and then he seemed to have reached an agreement. He asked me if I would be interested in renting a villa in the neighborhood. The price is 3 of the price of the pension, since it was our fault. We agreed, but then things started to get a little weird. Apparently, the villa had not been used for a long time, and it would take some time to prepare and clean it. We were given transportation expenses and a discount coupon for the aquarium, so we were told to kill some time there and come back in the evening. The aquarium was located far from the pension, or rather in a big city outside of the prefecture, and it was almost 6 p.m. by the time we came back. We were like, "How abandoned is it that it takes this long to get ready?" It's not abandoned or anything, is it? Something looks fishy. We went to the management office with these concerns in our mouths. When we returned to the pension, a different man was waiting for us, and when he was ready to show us around, he took us to a villa in the woods, about a 15-minute walk away. The place was completely in the forest, and there was nothing around, so even if I made a lot of noise, there would be no complaints. The man told us that it had been unused for a while, and it took some time to get there, but there was electricity, water, gas, and a direct phone line to the management cabin, although there was no cell phone service. He began explaining to us in a very honest manner that there was no problem. We felt that the man was getting desperate, and we began to feel quite uneasy, but there was nothing we could do now, so we went inside the villa. The villa, like its exterior, was an old Western-style building that looked as if it had been built about 30 or 40 years ago, and the interior was correspondingly old-fashioned. However, it was quite neat and clean, despite the fact that it had not been used for a long time. When I think about it now, it is better to say there is hardly any trace of human use than to say it was neat and tidy. After listening to the explanation of the villa, we took off our luggage and were getting ready to prepare a barbecue for dinner, when the man started to say something strange as he was leaving. He asked us not to go out late at night, because there is a possibility of bears coming out here in the middle of the night. For some reason, we were made to promise quite carefully that we would not go out late at night. In a place like this, only 15 minutes away from a cluster of pensions, we all wondered why, but we agreed that they were probably just trying to scare the kids away, since it would be troublesome if they got into trouble or had an accident while out late at night. The first day passed like that, and after dinner we went for a walk in the woods at midnight, played with fireworks and games, and went to bed around 2 am. Nothing strange happened that day, but the next day one of my friends said something strange. He said he had to pee in the middle of the night, and when he went to the bathroom, he heard a drumming sound coming from outside. We let it go, saying it was probably just a measuring, and he agreed that it was probably just his imagination. But that night an incident occurred. That day, we had eaten barbecue for dinner and were full, so we had no time to do anything. Nothing happened during the test of courage, and we returned to the billet feeling bored. The time was around 10 p.m. We didn't think the caretaker would come at this hour, so we approached him and asked, "Is this a beggar?" We approached him, but the man kept holding the doorknob and did not even turn around. We could hear his footsteps and voice, so a beggar or a suspicious person would have run away, but the guy didn't move even when we got as close as about 10 meters away. It was a little creepy, but my friend and I, who was the leader of the group, approached the man, saying, "What are you doing, old man?" We couldn't get anywhere, so my friend pulled the guy's arm and said, "Don't you hear me?" and pulled the guy's arm. At that moment, my friend and I both screamed "Oh!" and jumped backwards. The reason why we jumped was because when my friend grabbed the guy's arm and pulled his arm about 10 cm from the wrist, bent at an unarticulated point, like a rubber band. The other friend approached to see what was going on, but only then did the man turn around. He looked normal, but his eyes were unfocused and unfocused, his mouth was slack-jawed and drooling, and it was only then that we realized that he was wearing very ragged clothes and didn't look like a normal person at all. As we stared at the man in amazement, he wandered off into the woods as if he did not see us. We were so shaken by what had happened that we couldn't move from the spot for a while. We rushed into the bill, locked the door, and checked the locks on all the doors in the room. Then we all gathered in the living room. What the hell was that? Is it a ghost? But I touched it. How could that arm be bent? As I was talking excitedly in a panic, I heard a faint drumming sound coming from outside. The sound was slow, but it came close to us. The sound seemed to be slowly approaching us, and we were all silent, listening and concentrating on the sound. When the sound approached the garden area, my anxiety reached a peak and I couldn't stand it any longer, so I opened the curtains in the living room and looked outside. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could see something large and spherical rolling toward me. The drum-like sound seemed to be coming from that spherical object. When I heard the thump, it rolled, and when I heard another thump, it stopped. While repeating this, it was slowly coming toward us along the road from the main street to the villa. I think it was about 5-6 meters in size. My other friends seemed to be concerned about my not moving while looking out the window, so they all came to the side of the window and looked at it. We all watched it silently for a while, but since it was dark, we couldn't make out what it was, and no one said a word. When it got pretty close, it came close to the front door, and the security light on the front door came on. At that moment, I thought to myself, what the hell was that? That's not funny, and hurriedly closed the curtains. Before I closed the curtains, the light illuminated for a moment, and I don't know how to describe it. It was an object that could be described as a mass of countless people. People of all ages, men and women, mouths open and drooling just like the man I saw earlier, eyes unfocused, as if they were not looking anywhere, their bodies intertwined with each other regardless of joints, and dozens of them lying around as one mass. We were all so terrified that we could not say anything, and we were all crowded together at the edge of the living room, shaking and trembling, talking anxiously about what the hell is going on and what the hell is going on, and so on. After a while, the thumping sound of drums was no longer heard. Unsure whether it was gone or not, we remained still at the edge of the living room, until this time from the front door came the sound of... I heard a violent banging on the door. I covered my ears, and everyone else covered theirs, desperately trying to cope with what was happening, but after a while, I began to hear more pounding from all over the building. and the sound of many people pounding messily everywhere, not just on the windows, not just on the walls. My friend couldn't take it anymore. We had a phone with a direct line to the management office. We suddenly realized what was happening and rushed to the phone by the front door. I picked up the phone and pressed the button marked direct dial, and after a few calls, the man who had guided us to the villa picked up the phone. I frantically told the uncle what had happened, and he said to himself. I was surprised that he still picked up the phone. After muttering to himself, he said, I told him that I was desperate to tell him what had happened, and he mumbled to himself, I can't believe it's still out there. There you will find a bill and a piece of sellotape. Put the tag on the door and wait for me. We had no idea what he meant, but with no other solution, we decided to go back to the living room and look for the altar anyway. The altar was at the end of the room, near the ceiling. Using a chair, we peeked inside, and sure enough, there was a lawyer and a roll of cellophane tape. We hurriedly took them out and put the money on the front door, the living room entrance door, and the window. I tried not to look out when I was putting the tags on the windows, but I looked out for a moment. Then I saw several pale arms pounding on the window, and furthermore beyond the arms, I saw a human face in a way that was unnatural to the position of the arms. The face, like the others, had unfocused eyes and a slack mouth. I was too frightened to think about what state it was outside. After what seemed like hours, when it began to get light outside, I had no more banging on the walls, doors, or windows. I was still unable to move, still wondering when it might be, and as I remained still, I began to hear a car coming toward me from the distance. As the car came to a stop in the yard, I heard the footsteps of several people, the sound of a doorbell being pressed, and a voice saying, Hey, are you okay? I heard a voice say. We said thank God, and rushed outside to find the person who had first arranged this place, the person who had given us directions, and 3 other men. The guy who made the arrangements and the guy who showed us around looked apologetic and said, I'm really sorry, I thought everything was going to be all right. I'll explain the situation to you. You can leave your garbage and stuff as it is. We did as he said and left the villa. They put us in a car and took us to a shrine. The 3 people who came with us seemed to be related to the shrine. We were relieved and felt relieved that we had been saved, but more than that we were angry and said, why did you let us stay at that place? I was furious. Then, a man who seemed to be the head priest of the shrine began to tell us the following story. Until the 1960s, it was just a forest, but at the end of the 1960s, people started to develop it as a tourist spot. The development was progressing smoothly, but strange things started happening in the early 1975s, when that villa was built. They still don't know if it was the villa or the development itself, but anyway, the sound of drums and masses of people started appearing around that time, and the owners of the first villa and the next disappeared while staying there. The first and second owners of the villa disappeared while staying there. The villa was put on the market and became a rental villa owned by the current management association. But the mass of people continued to appear many times after that, and although no one was harmed, there were many complaints from witnesses, so the Shinto priest performed a purification ceremony about 10 years ago. Since then, it had not been rented out, but since none of the people who came to clean and maintain it had seen it, they decided that it was probably safe now, so they rented it to us. The result of that was last night's incident, apparently. When we complained a lot, the manager told us that we would have to pay for our transportation and food, that we would not have to pay for the rental of the villa, and that he would even talk to the agency to give us a big discount on our next trip. We were really sorry, but we asked him to please keep quiet about this. We felt like we were being talked into something, but we reluctantly decided to take the deal, knowing that the police wouldn't believe us anyway. That's all. As I wrote above, I can't write the name of the place in detail because of such circumstances. Incidentally, when I called the travel agency last year to get a discount, I was told that the villa has been torn down and the land has been cleared.